What's blub 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 blub? Blub 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 blub. Welcome, humans, to Monkey Boy's Toys. Feast your eyes on this visually engaging item of seating furniture, the sofa. Thanks for joining me again. Here's a transparent egg to look at. Oh, hold on. Okay, so this week. Oh, sorry, hold on. Stay there. Okay, so this week I hope to redeem myself following a dreadful error made several weeks ago when I made the mistake of buying a set of TMNT figures I believed were the 2012 Playmates versions, but turned out to be horrendous bootleg or knockoff items, much to my own disappointment, shame and embarrassment. If you'd like to see the video I made at the time, please follow the link in the description and see the horrifying mess for yourselves. Oh, that bloody egg has fallen over again. Right, I'll just remove it and then we can get on with the video. So, I have now managed to get a complete set of 4 genuine Playmates TMNT figures from 2012. These are the highly articulated 6-inch figures I had originally intended to buy in the first place, primarily for their posability. So let's do a side-by-side comparison with the knockoffs and find out if there's really a significant difference in build quality and functionality, and let's see if there are any surprises. Okay, we will start off with Donnie, knockoff on the left, genuine on the right. First up, we can see that the knockoff's colours are more saturated, some might say garish. The green is a little darker, although it's not incredibly apparent on the camera, but it is a slightly darker green. The purple on the genuine Donnie here we can see is a lot more subdued than the knockoff, which is a very bright purple. Overall, the genuine figure has more of a pastel quality. The finish on the bootleg is sort of patchy at best, but overall is more glossy than the genuine one, which has a slightly more matte finish. Of course, many people may prefer the richer colours and the glossier finish of the knockoff, but that's fine. Let me know in the comments what you think. But so here we go. My main disappointment with the knockoffs was all the missing points of articulation. So let's look at that. Starting at the shoulder here, we can see that the genuine figure has a hinge and a rotation. Let's just demonstrate that. Here we have the rotation, and of course the hinge going forwards and backwards or up and down here. Anyway, so yes, that's a big difference, and that will play a key part in some of the posing that I'll demonstrate later on. The counterfeit only has the rotation; it doesn't have the hinge, and yeah, that's a significant disappointment in terms of the articulation options. Moving down, we can see that good Donnie has a bicep cut, which is not present on the bootleg figure on the left here. You can see that's just a solid mould, whereas this original Playmates version does have a bicep swivel. Again, I'll just show you that. So the bicep will swivel. Again, this is a key area of articulation that does make a difference in some of the poses that are achievable. It must be said that the bicep swivels on these 2012 figures are a little bit loose in some cases. They're not too bad on Donnie, but some of the other figures have their biceps have become a little bit loose, which does present a bit of a problem, and that's a shame. But I suppose it's better to have the articulation than not in the case of the knockoffs. The elbow articulation is about the same, although I would say that the knockoffs construction, certainly the pin construction, is perhaps a little bit softer. It seems that way anyway. It doesn't feel quite as robust. I don't think there's a ratchet in the elbows of either. So there we go. The knockoff does appear to have a hinge at the wrist. We can see here it does have a swivel, and if you can see in here we do have a hinge at the wrist. Now bizarrely, the Playmates version, although it has the swivel, it doesn't appear to have a hinge, which is peculiar. But of course the fingers are articulated on the Playmates version and the thumb, whereas on the knockoff version on the left here we can see it's just a solid mould. So that does also make quite a difference in terms of how you can sort of hold the weapons. Although it must be said that the fingers and thumbs on the Playmates versions are also quite loose, so it's actually not the easiest to keep the weapons in their hands either. The ball joint at the diaphragm seems more or less the same on both figures. There's not a lot in it. The Playmates version is a lot stiffer, but they both seem to offer the same sort of posability. We do get a thigh cut on the Playmates figure, as you can see here. We've got a thigh cut there. That is not present on the bootleg figure. I mean, I must admit, I think these thigh cuts do look a bit shit if you actually use them, because look, you know, the lines don't, they can sort of start to look a little bit peculiar. But so I prefer not to use the thigh articulation if I can. I keep them lined up as much as possible. But again, that's not an option for the bootleg version here. The hip construction is much better with the Playmates. It's the ball joint is sort of set deeper into the body. I'm not sure if you can see particularly well, but I mean it doesn't seem much different, but certainly the knockoff's hip construction is quite weak and not doesn't seem as functional as the Playmates version. I think the knees are about the same. We don't have any ratchets or anything in the knees. These are just a 2-pin construction. Again, the knockoff's construction is a bit softer, but overall they're about the same. Playmates gives us some toe articulation, although it's pretty loose, and I've actually managed to knock a couple of toes off of the Playmates figures while I've been manipulating them. But I suppose we have the option of toes. There is no toe movement on the knockoff figure. Now, interestingly, the ankle on the knockoff figure, we have a hinge here. We also have something of a rocker. I don't think it's particularly functional, but there is a bit of movement there, and obviously we have a sort of rotation as well as the hinge. But the Playmates version doesn't have any sort of rocker. We've just got the hinge here at the foot. There is a rotation. It's a lot stiffer and sturdier than the knockoff version, which is very loose. Now the cheapo figures actually fit onto the stands slightly more securely than the Playmates versions do. The fit of the peg hole onto the peg is a lot tighter on the knockoff version. The Playmates gave me an awful lot of trouble when I was trying to pose them, because the feet kept popping off of the pegs, so that was quite frustrating. But yes, there we go. Okay, so that's basically a comparison of the functionality and design of the figures, and we'll pop Donnie to the back, and then I'll just show you quickly a comparison of the other figures. Obviously I won't go into the amount of detail that I've just done with Donnie. Let's just pop Donnie over there. Okay, so here's Mikey. Not so much of a difference in the colour, particularly of his bandana and his pads and stuff. They are very similar in colour. The figures, again, are slightly different in the finish. The knockoff is again glossier than the genuine version. You can see that particularly on the chest there, and yeah. So there we go. But essentially, these figures all compare about the same to each other. Yeah, there we go. Let's pop Mikey over here, and then we'll bring in Raph. So we can see there is a bit of a difference in the saturation on his bandana there. The knockoff version is a lot brighter, more colourful, and yes, the genuine version there is sort of got a slightly more pastel quality to it. But there's Raph. Let's stick him there. Oh, his foot's gone all weird. There we are. There's Raph. And finally, let's have a look at Leo. There we go. The colour of the bandana is similar. There's not as much difference as perhaps we saw with the Donatello figure. But there you go. So there is he. Let's stick those there. Now, in terms of accessories, there's a big quality difference there. Let's just see if we can focus on those guys. The accessories on the knockoff versions here on the left are much softer. I mean, Donnie's bow staff has come out here. As we can see, it's a very soft and wibbly plastic, whereas the genuine Playmates version has a bow staff that is a lot more rigid, as it were. Donnie has a
stiffer shaft.
With the Playmates version. The nunchucks on Michelangelo are very similar. They both have an actual chain. There's not really much difference. I suppose the links are slightly smaller on the genuine version. If we can just get that to focus again. So yeah, there we go. The sai on Raphael knockoff are very wibbly, as you can see. The genuine version is a lot more rigid plastic. Possibly easier to snap, the genuine version, but anyway. And the biggest difference is probably Leo's swords. If we take out if I can get out one of Leo's katanas there, I mean, we can already see it's bent all to piss, isn't it? Take out one of the genuine ones. It's nice and straight. This is basically a very gummy, awful plastic. from the knockoff version, whereas the genuine Playmates one, as you can see, is much better. So there we go. I'll just pop those off to the side for now, and then we can move on. Let's just adjust the focus again. I'm sorry about this focus issue and the lighting issue. I'm using a new phone, and it refuses to work with my lights, and the autofocus is dog shit, so I'm sorry about that. Interestingly, the katana that Leo uses, one of them should be longer than the other, according to Canon. The longer of the katana is called a daito, and the shorter katana is called a shoto. Just an interesting little tidbit there for you. Anyway, let's get to the main point of this video, which is to have a look at the posability options for each set of figures. Now, obviously, the Playmates figures have several more points of articulation, but how much of a difference does this actually make, and can we achieve similar poses with the knockoffs? Now, I'm not the best at posing figures, but I've posed each of the Playmates figures 3 times each and tried to recreate the same poses with the knockoffs. So let's see how they compare in terms of functionality and display options. We'll start with Leo. Here on the left we have the Playmates version in the process of drawing his weaponry, and on the right we have the knockoff. So it's not a bad start. They both look pretty cool. The knockoff forces a bit more symmetry because of the lack of that shoulder hinge, but overall I'd say this is almost a draw. So let's perhaps give them a scoring system, shall we? This will be, of course, my own subjective opinion, but I will give each one a score out of 10. Which will not be an indication of my figure posing skills, but rather how natural and dynamic are the poses I'm able to achieve with the levels of articulation available. I'll score each knockoff out of 5 in terms of how accurately I'm able to reproduce each pose. I know it's a vague scoring system. I will add everything up at the end to give the impression of a considered assessment, and will reveal total scores that will likely be of no surprise to anyone. So here I'm going to award the Playmates figure an 8 out of 10. For overall appearance and realism, and I think I'll give the knockoff a 7 out of 10, and the knockoff will get a 4 out of 5 for its ability to mimic the pose. Okay, so the next pose for Leo, the Playmates version on the left again, looks pretty natural. I'll give that a 9 out of 10, pretty nice pose there. The knockoff can't quite get there, unfortunately, and the right arm looks a bit weird, so I'm going to give that one a 7 for realism. And the knockoff will get 4 out of 5 for the similarity of the pose. And the last pose here for Leo, Playmates earns itself an 8 for naturalistic appearance, but the knockoff can't achieve this pose at all and looks quite shit. So it's going to get a 5 out of 10 for appearance, and I think a 3 out of 5 for the pose reproduction. On to Raphael. Now, Playmates here in a peculiar pose, admittedly. Let's give that a 6 out of 10 for looking stupid. But can the knockoff gain some ground here? No. That is terrible. So 3 out of 10 overall for the knockoff, and it's also going to get a 2 out of 5 for similarity to the Playmates pose. The next shot for Raph isn't amazing. Let's give Playmates a 7 out of a possible 10 for that. But the knockoff version, again, shits the bed with this attempt, really suffering from the lack of a shoulder hinge. This pose, at best, a 6 out of 10. And its ability to achieve the Playmates pose is going to get a 3 out of 5, and it should probably think itself lucky. And the third pose for Playmates Raph, again, not brilliant, another 7 out of 10, I think, and that's being generous. But the knockoff is struggling with that leading arm, and it means I can only give a 6 of 10 for the pose. And in terms of mimicry, I believe a 3 out of 5 would be fair. Okay, so on to my personal favourite Twiddle, Donatello. A nice stance here from the Playmates, worthy of a 9 out of 10, I reckon. It's very natural. And here on the right, Wish Donnie doesn't really know what he's doing, and he will accept a 4 out of 10 for looking completely unprepared. Let's also award the knockoff a 2 out of 5 for its ability to copy the Playmates pose. Moving on, another sweet pose from Donnie here. Playmates earning itself an 8 out of 10. Would have been a 9, but I just couldn't get the knees to behave. Now, the knockoff's attempt to recreate the pose isn't very good, but it doesn't look awful, aside from his
Wonky shaft.
So I'll give this a 7 out of 10 for its appearance, although no more than a 3 out of 5 for the pose. The knees of the knockoff, in fact, look more natural than the Playmates version, but that's likely due to my lack of attention when posing the genuine figure. But that left knee on the Playmates photo there looks Nasty. Anyway, final pose here. It's not great. Probably a 7 out of 10 for realism, but the knockoff version, ooh, that should be grateful for a 4. I think a 3 out of 5 for mimicry is reasonably fair. And finally on to Michelangelo, coming in hot with this satisfying pose for an easy 9 out of 10. Playmates doing well there. A stance that makes a statement. If we compare this with the knockoff version, it's somehow standing like a question. It doesn't look terrible, so I'd lean towards maybe a 7 out of 10 for realism, but only a 2 out of 5 for its ability to mimic the Playmates pose. Next up we have Mikey giving something of a flex. Not a bad pose, although the arms could benefit from being raised a bit, but that's my bad. I think maybe 6 out of 10 for the pose is fair. Knockoff Mikey looks a bit starched, and I wasn't able to achieve the hunch, mainly because of the absence of those shoulder hinges again. So because of that, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 for the pose itself. In terms of looking natural, only a 2 out of 5, I think, for its resemblance to the Playmates pose. And finally, we have Mikey in this dynamic limb arrangement, looking ready for an incoming threat. Another 9 out of 10, I feel. And another quizzical stance from the knockoff, which just about manages a 6 out of 10 for overall look, and scrapes together a 3 out of 5 for its ability to copy the pose of the genuine figure. So there we are. I will now pull up a calculator and ask it about numbers. Okay, so I have an entirely subjective set of statistical results that confirm what we all expected the whole time. So let's have a look at those, and then I will summarise rather unnecessarily, and we can all go about our daily lives having learned nothing of any real value. So the first category I have titled, rather obnoxiously, Perceived Dynamicism and Verisimilitude. Because of course I have. Now each figure had 3 opportunities to demonstrate its functional capacity to be posed in a convincing and natural posture, and was scored out of 10, with a maximum of 120 points available in total for each set of 4 figures. Now the Playmates figures from 2012 achieved a total of 93 points out of 120, and the knockoff figures produced in the year managed to only achieve 67 out of 120. Now, the second category really only applied to the counterfeit figures, which were rated for their ability to mimic the poses achieved with the genuine figures, and each pose was given marks out of 5, with a maximum of 60 points available. And these substandard figures managed a total of 34 points out of 60, which, to be honest, is not as pitiful as I was expecting. So, what have we learned from this comparison? Essentially, fuck all. The stunning conclusion to be drawn is that you get what you pay for, and that purchasing counterfeit goods by mistake is a stupid thing to do. Stop the press. So, here we are at the arse end of the video. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I hope you've been entertained to some extent. If you'd like to see my initial review of the knockoff Turtles figures, again, you can find a link in the description which will take you directly to that shit show. And if you've enjoyed today's video, why not give it a thumbs up? This really helps the channel. And if you're able to share the video or the channel on your socials, that would also be very much appreciated. If you are one of the 80% of regular viewers not currently subscribed to the channel, I would urge you to stop being a silly billy, to join the Monkey family, and to hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any new videos. So thanks again for your visit to the Monkey Boy nest. I hope you can join me next time, but until then, I'm going to make like a shepherd and get the flock out of here. See you soon. Bye-bye, bye, 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 bye.
I'm not a horse, I'm a pony.